All right. You ready? Should we do this? All right. I'm David Feldman, and this is the mop up for April 21st, 2023. Wow. Coming up in a few minutes, my interview with the 45th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump. Some people say it's Robert Smigel. Why would Robert Smigel do this show? I've got Donald J. Trump, an interview with Donald J. Trump coming up in a few minutes. I want to remind you that office hours this Friday night begins at 8 p.m. It's a special office hours. We've got Judah Friedlander from 30 Rock, one of the funniest comedians in the world. Judah Friedlander is going to be at office hours. His Netflix special is America is the Greatest Country in the United States. Great special. Plus, Mike Elk from Payday Report, my hero, Mike Elk. I've been trying to get Mike on this show for years. Mike Elk is the editor and founder of Payday Report. It is the most authoritative, it is the definitive labor website in America. This is a great man, a hero, Mike Elk. We will talk labor and the Writers Guild strike with Mike Elk, the best labor reporter in America, is on our show Friday night, along with Professor Mike Steinel. His new book is out. So please join me for office hours, 8 p.m. Eastern. The link is in the description of this show. You don't need Zoom. You can phone in, just hit the link. It's got all the information. It's in the description of this episode, or go to my website and hit office hours. I want to meet you. I want to talk to my listeners. Coming up, former President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, will be joining us. On Thursday, SpaceX's test launch of its Starship rocket exploded into a fiery crash, or as Elon Musk calls that, pulling a Twitter. Ground Control thinks it blew up after 3 rockets failed to ignite, although since this was Texas, it might have been shot out of the sky after accidentally flying over the lawn of an 85-year-old white man who mistook it for an intruder. More on that later. BuzzFeed is closing its BuzzFeed news operation. The announcement was made by BuzzFeed CEO Jonah Peretti in a company memo entitled 15 of the Coolest Reasons I Can No Longer Continue to Fund BuzzFeed. House Republicans are demanding answers from the Biden administration after a whistleblower came forward to reveal that the IRS investigation into Hunter Biden's taxes is plagued by, quote, preferential treatment and politics, unquote. Now, would that be the same preferential treatment and politics that kept Donald Trump from being audited during his first 2 years in office, even though it's IRS policy to audit all sitting presidents? Is it that same preferential treatment and politics you're talking about? The same preferential treatment and politics that would have kept Trump from ever getting audited if the Democrats didn't take over the House in 2019 and Richie Neal, chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, Democrat, if he didn't ask, why aren't you guys auditing this guy? Is that the same preferential treatment and politics that resulted in James Comey and Andy McCabe, the 2 former FBI chiefs Trump fired, who immediately after getting fired also ended up getting the mother of all audits from the IRS? Is that what you're talking about? You know, last time I checked, the American people didn't elect Hunter Biden, and I'm not sure destroying Hunter Biden is going to make anyone's life better, including Jim Jordan's. Leave the guy alone. We have bigger things to worry about, like Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Dick Durbin has asked Chief Justice John Roberts to testify before Congress in early May about Clarence Thomas's gifts from billionaire Harlan Crow. But when you think about it, Thomas and Crow are a perfect match. Harlan has absolutely no business before the court, and Clarence has absolutely no business being on the court. Dick Durbin, by the way, is also who Clarence Thomas told Anita Hill was his favorite porn star. Dick Durbin. Different guy, not the senator, the porn star. In Kansas, a 16-year-old boy knocked on the wrong door, and the 84-year-old man living there shot him in the head. The old man was white, the young boy was black, so obviously we need to have a serious conversation in this country about race. And then in upstate New York, a 20-year-old girl drove up the wrong driveway, and the homeowner fired 2 shots at the car from his porch and killed her. She was white, and he was white. So maybe in addition to race, we need to have a serious conversation about driving up the wrong driveways. People who make driveways need to post signs that read, "Are you sure this is your driveway?" We need to have a serious conversation about race and driveways in this country. Then 2 Texas cheerleaders were shot when they opened the wrong car door in a supermarket parking lot. Okay, so in addition to a serious conversation about race, as well as a serious conversation about driving up the wrong driveways, here in America, we need to have a serious, heartfelt conversation about cheerleaders in supermarket parking lots thinking that's their car, but it isn't. We need to speak to the auto companies and figure out a way to make cars more recognizable to their cheerleaders. How many more cheerleaders must be shot because they mistook someone else's car for their own? So we need to have a serious conversation in this country about that. And then in North Carolina, a 6-year-old was seriously wounded after her basketball rolled onto a neighbor's front lawn and that neighbor opened fire. So obviously, we need to have a serious conversation in this country about lawns and making them ball resistant. And, there's a lot of blame to spread around here. Balls should also be manufactured to prevent themselves from rolling onto someone else's lawns. And, there are a lot of serious conversations to be had this week. But I think that covers everything, right? Race, driveways, cars, balls, and lawns. I guess that covers everything. Did I forget anything? No, that's it. I think I've covered all the reasons innocent Americans keep getting shot. So we should move on. Hey, it's office hours, Friday night, April 22nd. April 21st. I'm sorry. April 21st, 2023. Come to office hours. It starts at 8 p.m. Eastern. My guests are comedian Judah Friedlander from 30 Rock. His latest Netflix special is America is the Greatest Country in the United States. Also, Mike Elk, my hero, the founder of Payday Report. This is the man who unionized Politico's newsroom. Then he got fired, and he got a cash settlement because it's against the law to fire somebody for forming a union. And he took the settlement from Politico and used it to build Payday Report, which is the definitive website that covers unions and the labor movement. He is my hero. Mike Elk is a great man, and I've been trying to get him on the show for years. This Friday, office hours, 8 p.m., come meet Mike Elk. We'll talk labor with him, and we'll also have Professor Mike Steinel as our musical guest. And if you're enjoying today's show, do me a favor and like it and share it and leave a comment. I read all your comments. You know I've read your comments. If there's a heart next to it, I read all your comments. Well, as I mentioned, in Kansas City, a black teenager was shot after he accidentally knocked on the wrong door. Andrew Lester, a white man in his mid-80s, has been arrested, and his grandson now says his grandfather was consumed by racist conspiracy theories that he absorbed by keeping his television on 24 hours a day. His grandson is blaming the police for not acting sooner. Acting sooner? By doing what? Disconnecting Fox News? I'm pretty sure Fox News doesn't fall into the category of red flag laws. It should, but it doesn't. But this is what Fox News does to old people. It makes them shoot unarmed black teenagers. Well, after 10 years with Fox News, Dan Bongino has been fired. Oh, too bad. Dan said he plans to write a book and pick up extra cash by doing some freelance racism on the side. Tough time for Dan Bongino. First, he lost his radio show, and today his television show. Plus, he put a lot of his money into Parler, the right-wing social media company, which was temporarily shut down. Poor guy has money problems. Forget owning the libs. Dan Bongino can't even rent one. In case you're unfamiliar, Dan Bongino was a New York City cop before joining Fox News 10 years ago. And being a New York City cop fully trained Dan for Fox News, since most of his time at Fox was spent beating up on innocent black people and ignoring women who have just been raped in the office because it was run by Roger Ailes. Well, Dan, if it makes you feel any better, you're getting fired. Does prove you're right about one thing. Immigrants are taking jobs away from Americans because, as we all know, Rupert Murdoch was born in Australia. There's a shining example, Rupert Murdoch, of why we need to close the border. Rupert Murdoch is right about the immigrants. We need to close the border. Dan Bongino, this is true. He's losing his show on Fox News, and it was called, and I'm not making this up, it was called Canceled in the USA. That was his show on Fox News, Canceled in the USA, where Dan takes on America's cancel culture. Canceled in the USA will be replaced by a new show called Irony in America. Yeah, the cancel culture hit Fox News, and they canceled Don Bongino. Fox News, rough week. On Tuesday, Fox agreed to settle that defamation lawsuit filed by Dominion for nearly $750 million. Fox News had a part with $750 million. That's nothing to sneeze at, since it's probably unvaccinated. You don't want to sneeze at $750 million that's unvaccinated. It could get very sick and die before you can deposit it safely into your own account. So Dominion, if you're watching, do not sneeze at Fox News's money. It's unvaccinated. $750 million. Give you an idea of what $750 million can get you. That's 6 female staffers agreeing not to press charges against Bill O'Reilly. That's Bill O'Reilly with the founder of Fox News, Roger Ailes, who sexually harassed, abused, and raped the women on Fox News. In other words, Roger Ailes was a Republican. And Bill O'Reilly was Me Too'd out of there. I don't know if you remember. It was just one multi-million-dollar settlement after another with Bill O'Reilly, which for a while Fox News chalked up to the cost of doing business with them. The same way they look at this settlement with Dominion. You got to spend money to make money. Fox News is a lie machine. And that $750 million settlement is the grease that keeps it moving. You know, I don't know if they should have settled. I think Fox News could have beat Dominion in that trial. All they needed was to win over 12 individuals who already fit Fox News's core demographic, people too stupid to get out of jury duty. But there will be some cutbacks to pay for that settlement. Tucker Carlson was told from now on, Fox can only afford to persecute the L and the G, a little B, but there's no longer anything budgeted for the T and the Q. More cutbacks. Coffee in the Fox News break room now costs $1, but the pigment reduction supplements in the medicine cabinet will remain free of charge. This is the largest defamation settlement in American history. But Dominion says it didn't get what it really wanted, and what it really wanted was an apology. Sure, that's what they really wanted, an apology. It sounds like every divorce, doesn't it? You know, the 5 houses, the cars, the cash, the Picassos, and the jewelry. They're really nothing because what I really wanted was an apology. No, what you really wanted was just the 5 houses, the cars, the cash, the Picassos, and the jewelry. Well, Dominion isn't done. They're also going to be suing Rudy Giuliani and the MyPillow guy for everything they are worth, which amounts to, I don't know, what's the silver in your back molars going for these days? They're broke. I don't know what Mike Lindell is stuffing in his mattresses, but I can assure you it isn't cash. Life's been tough on Mike Lindell ever since he got addicted to fame. He should go back to crack. It's much healthier, and you surround yourself with a much better class of people. And Rudy, well, Rudy has no money. Yesterday he booked a press conference at Four Seasons Total Landscaping to announce he'll do your lawn for a pint of Jim Beam. Remember when Trump told Rudy to dig up the dirt on Hunter Biden? Now Trump is ordering Rudy to dig up the dirt clogging Mar-a-Lago's sewer drain. This morning, Rudy went down to the plasma center to make $70. The nurse came back 5 minutes later and said the test results are back and your blood alcohol level is 0.914. Rudy said, fine, I'll drink it here. Rudy has been suspended from the D.C. bar for not paying his dues, but Rudy told the D.C. bar that Phil informed him he had an open tab. $750 million. Granted, Fox News makes billions, but trust me, Fox is still hurting. Black people, Mexicans, Guatemalans, and drag queens. Their ratings are fine. Greg Gutfeld is beating Kimmel, Colbert, and Fallon, making him the king. I'm sorry, it's Fox News, the Il Duce of late night. Meanwhile, another voting machine company named Smartmatic is suing Fox News for $2.7 billion. In case you're not aware, Smartmatic is a multinational voting machine company headquartered in London. In other words, you must be an American citizen to run for president, but not to count the votes. Sorry, there's an opening at Fox News. Dan Bongino's gone, and I figured if I clipped that one and sent it over to Fox, maybe they would hire me. Well, meanwhile, on Fox News all week, there has been absolutely no mention of the Dominion lawsuit. If you watch Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity, or Laura Ingraham, you'd have no idea that Dominion won their case or that Lincoln freed the slaves. The good news is that Fox has learned its lesson and from now on will only exhibit the highest standards of journalistic ethics. For example, here's Maria Bartiromo yesterday.
So the bottom line is COVID-19 came from a lab. It was manufactured in a lab. It was funded with U.S. dollars. There was nobody in the United States to investigate that lab. And here we are.
You're back. Maria's back, baby. I remember Maria Bartiromo on CNBC when she was just stupid. Speaking of brain-dead simpletons, Arnold Schwarzenegger is driving around his leafy neighborhood of Brentwood taking the law into his own hands. He's become a pothole vigilante, posting videos on social media of himself and his road crew pouring asphalt and filling in the potholes while spewing your typical Ayn Randian affirmations that, if you want to get something done, you do it yourself. No, Arnold, if you want to get something done, you pay your taxes and let the government fix the potholes. Arnold should be arrested for doing this. Who gave Arnold permission to do road work? Nonstop flooding, atmospheric rivers, earthquakes. But that's what California needs right now. The son of a Nazi thinking he's a pothole vigilante. It is the if you want something done, you do it yourself credo that created these potholes, Arnold. There are potholes in your neighborhood in Brentwood because the people like you who live there don't want to pay taxes. You don't want to maintain the infrastructure, and you wait until everything is crumbling around you before asking, how did this happen? How did it happen? Budget cuts. Your budget cuts, Arnold, when you were the governor of California. Arnold referred to legislators who didn't want to slash the budget as, quote unquote, girly men. Isn't that nice? Girly men. This is the same governor who preached austerity, who said we had to balance the California budget at the height of the Great Recession. Brilliant. That's what you want to do when there's a big recession. Balance the budget, right? That's where those potholes came from, Arnold, from swinish pigs like you who don't want to fund their government, who refuse to pay their taxes, demand that government provide less and less, and then when it starts affecting them, they complain that government, for some reason, doesn't serve the citizens. Yeah, it doesn't serve the citizens when it elects idiots like you, Arnold, for governor. Calling Democrats girly men because they wanted the government to work for everyone, that is the height of vulgarity. You don't elect rapacious bodybuilders with balls as shriveled as their acting skills. This is what we did in California when I lived there. We elected a bodybuilder, and then they wonder why it all turns to shit. But, my friend said, I got to vote for him. He called Democrats girly men. Yeah. Well, it should come as no surprise that the same governor who called Democrats girly men also, as governor, blocked San Francisco from granting same-sex marriage licenses and vetoed, when he was governor, vetoed legislation legalizing same-sex marriages. In other words, once the son of a Nazi, always the son of a Nazi. Gustav Schwarzenegger, brown shirt, S.A. That's who Arnold's father was. I'm sorry, road work, filling potholes is dangerous. And when you don't know what you're doing, you can make the potholes even more dangerous. You need a licensed crew who knows what they're doing, not some addled buffoon working out his road and roid rage. By the way, the reason we have potholes is because of imbeciles like Arnold driving around in their Hummers, chewing up the asphalt and heating up our planet. He's a bad driver. He crashed into a friend of mine, almost killed her. Oh, and another thing, by the way, Arnold, it wasn't a pothole that you were filling, you effing moron. It wasn't a pothole. It was a utility trench dug by the gas company to repair a gas line, you moron. The gas company finished the work about 3 months ago and was planning to fill it in May. And Arnold said, well, what's the delay? Oh, I don't know. How about the massive flooding from climate change caused by your giant Hummers? How about that? The utility companies are understaffed because climate change is causing mudslides, and there's only so much they can do. I'm sorry you're inconvenienced, Arnold, but I don't want you filling in trenches that are dug for pipes carrying gas. Okay? He continued to lie about this. He said that the city loved his work. They didn't. He said they're leaving it alone. That's a lie. The city had to come out and fix his fix. They had to go out and repair it. This is what end times looks like. People fixing their own potholes. Do you trust your neighbor to fix the roads you and your family ride on? But we don't need government. That's what neighbors are for. They fix the potholes. Your neighbors build our bridges and patch the infrastructure and perform heart surgery. That's what neighbors are for. Well, coming up, my exclusive interview with Donald J. Trump, but first it's time for the news wrap-up. Presidential candidate and anti-vaxxer Robert Kennedy Jr. says instead of getting a shot to prevent polio, it's better to sneak up behind the virus and bore it to death. After being introduced by Steve Bannon, an unvaccinated Robert Kennedy Jr. wonders what fresh STDs he's about to catch from using Steve Bannon's microphone. Fulton County, Georgia District Attorney Fani Willis, in trying to prosecute Donald Trump for election interference, faces the same challenge every district attorney who tries to prosecute Donald Trump faces: mountains and mountains of overwhelming evidence proving his guilt. Just boxes of evidence proving his guilt. Charles Cotton, the president of the National Rifle Association, kicked off their annual meeting by reminding attendees that the only thing that stops a bad guy with a T-shirt cannon is a good guy with a T-shirt cannon. Seeing the blood on his hands from all the murders and suicides he's responsible for, NRA head Wayne LaPierre channels the ghost of Lady Macbeth and screams, "Out, damn spot, out, I say." Here we see the crowd just about to be led in to attend a class on what the NRA claims is its core mission, gun safety. Yes, this is the crowd at the NRA convention lining up for a class on gun safety. As Mike Pence is heckled by an angry Trump supporter at the NRA convention, the former vice president is relieved to see the man is only holding an AR-15 and not a noose. Every year, Donald Trump wows the NRA crowd and brings them to their feet by reenacting the gun-cleaning death of actor George Reeves, who played Superman. And the theme of this year's NRA convention was, "I'll show her." I'll show her. NRA head Wayne LaPierre gave a speech underwritten by the manufacturers of the Glock entitled, "Why Fists Are Stupid." On her visit to the NRA convention, Mabel Sue of Billingsgate, Montana, had to get a picture. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. It was the same hunting rifle Mitch, her first husband, stuck in her mouth on their wedding night. Oh, isn't that sweet that she's taking a picture of the same rifle that her first husband, Mitch, stuck in her mouth on their wedding night. I should have gone to that NRA convention. It looked fun. Because he's suffering from lead poisoning-induced dementia, before a packed room waiting to hear former President Donald Trump, Wayne LaPierre made his assistant keep a tally of how many times he could clap his hands before it turned into an ouchie. Looking out over a sea of wall-eyed illiterates with a collective IQ of 50, Donald Trump was forgiven for accidentally referring to the NRA crowd as Don Jr. Then, to liven up the NRA crowd, Donald asked the audience to vote on whether he should crush the monarch butterfly between the palms of his hands or tear it apart at the wings. Staring out at a crowd of gun-worshiping beer-drenched MAGA supporters with unresolved childhood trauma and delirium tremors, Donald Trump suddenly became grateful for his Secret Service detail and made a mental note to only charge his agents $10,000 a night to stay with him in Mar-a-Lago. As his wife, Karen, stands blindfolded before a firing squad of Trump supporters, Mike Pence decides the prudent thing to do is finish the speech he came to deliver and then say something afterwards in private. While up in New Hampshire, dipping his toe into the presidential waters, Chris Christie was harpooned. Because of his incredibly slow and turtle-like metabolism, it took nearly 50 years, but on Tuesday, Chris Christie's belches finally smelled like that tray of deli meats served at his grandpa Johnny's wake back in 1973. Took a while to process that deli tray, but those belches finally started smelling like it. Well, Donald Trump was the 45th president of the United States. I spoke to him earlier today. I asked him if it was scary being in that Manhattan jail. Was it scary being in?
Well,
Was it scary being in the jail?
well, not especially. I mean, except for all the Mexicans. But, Trump doesn't scare easily.
No. Yeah.
You know what the guard said to me, David?
What?
You know what they told me I had?
What?
Cojones, David.
I'm sorry, what?
They told me I had cojones, David.
Mm.
I'm not making that up. Not making that up, David. You know what that means? You know what that means, cojones? It's Honduran caravan for balls, David.
Mm.
Cojones.
Mm.
You have cojones, David. You do. You do. You also have cojones.
Oh, thank you very much.
In your mouth. In your mouth, David. That's where you have cojones.
Is that really necessary?
Yes, it was, David, because you're disgusting. You're so gross, David, and so mean. It was very much deserved, David. I'm sorry.
Okay, but tell me about your survival instinct. You're there in the Manhattan courthouse.
Here's the secret, David, to surviving in jail. Trump's little secret. I'm going to write a book. I should write a book, David.
Mm-hmm.
I really should. The secret to jail: find the toughest guy in the room and establish dominance, David.
I've heard that, right.
That's right. Right after I was fingerprinted, David, I looked around. I said, who's the alpha dog here? And you know what I did, David?
What?
I cold cocked him right on the spot, David. I just cold cocked him. And this guy was tough, David.
Right.
This guy was tough, sinewy, David. You know what that means, David?
Muscles.
Muscles.
Yeah.
It means he had muscles, David. Quite frankly, I'd never seen anyone that imposing, David. Honestly, it was very frightening, David, very frightening. Right out of central casting, David. Just like I told Tucker, you could look all over Hollywood and you would never find a guy this tough, David. I'm telling you, David.
And you cold cocked him.
It was terrifying.
Yeah.
How dominant and how central casting, muscular this guy was, David. Most men, I cold cocked him. Most men, David, I'll tell you what, most men, let me tell you, most men would have crumbled, but not Trump.
Not Trump.
Not Trump. I looked him straight in the eye, David, and I said, you know what I said, David? I said, what are you looking at, punk? That's what I said. What are you looking at, punk?
Wow.
Right? Right?
Yeah.
I know. And I beat the living crap out of him, David. Take a guess who it was, David. Guess who was the toughest guy?
I don't.
Go ahead and ask, David.
I don't know who would be.
Ask me who in the jail was the toughest guy that I had to show dominance to, because this guy was strong, David. This guy was sinewy and tough, David.
Okay. Who was the guy?
It was me, David. It was me. I was the toughest guy in the jail cell. And I had to show me who's boss. I had to kick my own ass, David. I won't lie. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to lie and say it didn't hurt, David.
So you had to establish dominance.
Oh, it hurt, David. You know what was the worst part, David?
What?
The rape. Because let me tell you something. The rape, I don't have any problem down there at all. So when I rape me, I'm going to feel it, David. I'm going to feel. Now, listen, David, I know it was wrong. I know. Believe me, I understand the law. I understand right from wrong. I knew it was wrong, but on the one hand, David, I had to show dominance. And on the other hand, David, in all honesty, David,
Yeah.
how could I resist me? But the bottom line is, David, I took care of business. I took care of business, David, and I put me in my place. And that was that.
That is my interview with the of the United States, Donald J. Trump. I'll be playing more of that interview later in the week. I'm being handed a note that it's Robert Smigel, and that's not true. That was Donald Trump, not Robert Smigel. You made a mistake. It's Donald Trump, 45th President of the United States. Well, thank you for watching and listening. Do me a favor and like this, please. It helps if you like the video. And the only reason you're watching this or listening to it is because somebody sent you a copy of this podcast. So please share. It's good to share and leave a comment. I read all your comments. You'll know I read them. There'll be a heart next to them. And what else? Oh, office hours. Please join me for office hours, April 21st, 2023 at 8 p.m. Eastern. Our guests, Mike Elk, the founder, publisher, editor of Payday Report. From 30 Rock, Judah Friedlander, funniest comedian out there. And Professor Mike Steinel will also join us for some music. I'm David Feldman, reminding you to stay strong and protect the weak.